In fact, I think in 2022, we hit the number where there are more people over the age of 50 than there are babies through the age of 15, which is like what, freshman year of high school. There are already more people over the age of 50. So these people will sit home alone from 3 o'clock on a Friday until the following Monday. So all weekend, they have nobody to talk to, nowhere to go, and nothing to do.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Aging Whealthily Podcast. I am your host, Sean. Bridget is absent today, but she will be back on the next episode. I have the distinguishment of being here with Miss Jill Kovalich. She is the owner of the Solo Aging program. And today's episode is titled The Invisible 16 Million, How to Age Wealthily as a Solo Ager. Good afternoon, Jill. How are you?
I'm well, Sean. Thanks for inviting me on today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you. Actually, it's an honor to have you. Welcome, Jill, to our podcast. Now, Jill, there are 16 million people aging in America solo. Mm-hmm. They don't have a spouse. They don't have children nearby to help them. That's more than the entire population of Pennsylvania. And yet you've built a business that caters to them, a program. Mm-hmm. Now, before you go into your program, though, I want you to tell us a little bit about you and what inspired you.
What inspired me? Oh, heavens. Probably aging is one thing. Actually, as my parents started to get older, and my sister is a retired nurse, and she helped me, I should say I helped her actually, take care of my father at the end of his life. And then for a short period of time, a few years, my mother was able to live alone at home. And then one day she couldn't anymore. And so then that led to another episode where my sister and I tag teamed to take care of my mom through the end of her life. And it was an honor really to help them through that period of time. But as that happened, and I saw that, I thought to myself, well, who's going to take care of me when I'm older? I myself am unmarried. I'm divorced, but I have no spouse. I don't have any children. And my immediate family is very small. So I have a couple of nieces and a sister in Connecticut, but they have lives of their own. So they're not involved in my life on a daily basis. So when I started to look at this, and I thought, well, what does my future look like? And, you know, when you lose your parents, things change and you start to realize, gosh, I'm not in my 20s or 30s anymore. Heck, I'm not in my 40s or 50s anymore, right? And so it starts to make you think a little, differently. Now, I'm a good researcher. I have a marketing background, so I like to connect the dots and find information. So I went out on the internet and started to look for answers to questions I have. Maybe I should move now. How am I going to age in place? What should I be thinking about as I get older? Are my finances in good shape, et cetera? And I really couldn't find any particular source that helped me. So I thought, well, if I can't find it, I'm going to build it. So I did. I crafted a website, which is an informational hub for people like myself who are solo agers, aging alone, as you said, without a spouse, without children or family, involved in their daily lives to help them with the questions that they have or any type of aging process. Yeah. And so it's there now, and that's how I kind of stepped into this, and it's been a very interesting and wonderful experience.
Wow, that is great. Now, I wouldn't have thought you a day over 35. But those solo agers,
That's genetics and low lighting. No.
But those solo agers, they're not waiting to be rescued. They're not invisible. They're building something new, right? New communities, new support systems, new ways to thrive. Now, what do you find most, right, with them and that they're most interested in finding or for themselves, or most lacking?
Most lacking or what their needs might be?
Yes.
It's very interesting because solo agers think about things in different ways from how couples think of things. And an example of that might be a retired couple might make a decision to move, and they might say, well, we're going to move near our daughter in Tennessee because she has a child now and we want to be near our grandchild. And so that decision is easy for them to make because it's family related. It's around their child and their grandchild. So what happens when you don't have children or grandchildren? You have many more options then. You could pick up and move to an entirely different place and kind of reinvent yourself and meet new people. Or you can continue relationships maybe that you have locally if you've grown up here. So it's not quite so cut and dried. And the other thing is to one that comes up, which I think is an odd one, but if you have a pet, you'll understand. I used to have a dog and she passed away before COVID. And I think to myself, it's nice to not have, to worry about having a pet right now, but I think I'd like to have a pet again. Then the question comes up, well, what happens? How old should I be when I get a pet? Because what happens to, if I pass away before my pet does? So that's another issue in there. If you were married, you don't think about that. You don't worry about it. You say, well, if something happens to me, my husband, will take care of Fluffy. Or if something happens to us, my daughter will take care of Fluffy. But when you don't have that kind of support system in place, these weird questions come up. And then other things like estate planning, beneficiaries, or who's going to be your power of attorney. Who can you trust if you don't have an adult child or a close sibling? There are these little nuances in there. So solo agers are concerned about things that couples are concerned about, but in different ways.
Right. Now, Jill, you're a marketing pro, 25 plus years of experience. Was there something that happened at around age 60 that moved you in this direction?
I've been running my own little agency for a while, working with businesses to offer them marketing services. And so I think naturally I like to connect the dots. And so I noticed a few different things converging. All right. So I'm aging. My parents are aging and passing away. I'm seeing my friends in the sandwich generation taking care of aging parents, making decisions. I started seeing my nieces and that age group of people, maybe not wanting to have children or wanting only one child. And then I started looking, I said, well, gee, I'm hearing all this stuff about, decreased population and, people are having fewer children. And I started to connect those dots. I said, well, what does that look like for me as I'm aging? What about people to, drive you around, or nurses or services in town? And I'm thinking, well, so what does that look like? We're all aging and, fewer people are aging behind us because they're not being born. And just these little things started popping up. And when I started to put them together, because I also like to do puzzles, okay, it started to form a picture. And these shifting demographics started to speak to me. And so that influenced me in the way that I crafted all of this. And it also pushed me a little bit further along for the Solo Agers, because we have needs and we're growing in numbers, and it's not really being addressed too much. So it's just a convergence of a lot of different things that started, popping up in my marketing brain. And I just was able to start putting together a picture that made kind of some sense to me.
Now, what type of emotion went through you? What did you feel when you realized that you were a solo ager? When that first dawned on you, like you just first hit with the reality that, wait a minute, I'm a solo ager. And did that term exist when it first dawned on you, when you first found yourself in that demographic?
I don't know that there was a definitive moment when I started saying, I'm a proud solo ager. I say that now, but I think it just came on slowly. I mean, I've been always a very independent person. I've traveled by myself. Today we call that solo travel.
Yes.
Okay? I started a business by myself. We would refer to that as a solopreneur. Okay. And so I'm certainly not feeling elderly. Inside, I always feel perpetually 36. Okay. That's just how I feel inside, So I don't know when it really happened, other than probably when my parents passed away. And I thought, well, I'm now in my 60s. And what does my future look like? And then when I was doing research, I came across the term elder orphan, and I really did not care for that. And I haven't found anybody who does like that term. There are plenty of people who are solo agers, or just people in general who are aging, who who are taking care of parents. So they're in no way an orphan, and they don't think of themselves like that. I don't think of myself like that, even though my parents are no longer living. And my mother was well into her 80s before she deigned to allow people to refer to her as elderly. Then she sort of wore it as a badge of honor.
Yes.
But we always feel a lot younger than we actually are. So that's, are you elderly? Are you an orphan? I don't think so. It's sort of bleak. So when you think of solo travelers, solopreneur, it's kind of a sexy title. So why can't we be solo agers? We're aging, but we're not elderly. We feel vital. We're starting businesses and going on trips and living vibrant lives. So it just seemed like a natural fit for where I'm at right now. And then there's not a lot of eyes on this. I mean, we don't talk about it a lot. There's, lately there have been some, articles popping up, about solo agers, but a lot of it is about living alone or finances. It's just scraping the surface right now.
Right. There's so much that lives, in the shadows when it comes to this.
Yes, we have whole lives.
Whole lives. As a matter of fact, when Bridget and I started the podcast and named it Aging Wealthily, part of what, one of the main parts of why we started is because we wanted to change the narrative as it pertains to aging. Because what we started seeing, working in senior care for so many years, and then, we're coming from being caregivers and then working in senior care for so many years. And as time advances, technology improves, medicine improves, you see people who are aging, and aging is not about decline anymore. It's not about decline. Aging is about living. It's about living with intention. It's about people are now standing up and saying, you know what? Yes, I'm aging, but I have a lot of life left to live. And I'm going to live even though I'm aging. Right? It's all about, joy, vitality, you find peace, you just find a place, a space. And I find so many people now in that space. I find me gravitating to the space. There was a short amount of time ago when I couldn't go without dyeing my beard. But now I've embraced it. I've embraced the gray. I've embraced the moment. Because when you're able to age with intention, you have you're in a certain place and have a certain type of focus. It just makes it a much more, it's a beautiful experience. And one that I couldn't imagine as a younger person, because you look at people, you say, we talked to our youngest daughter, and, she'd say, oh, you guys are old. I'm saying, oh, I'm 56. What do you mean I'm old? I'm in a great space right now. This is a great place to be. So when I hear you talk about it and just being a solo ager and how when you speak of it, like you own your space, you own the position. And you are an example of the narrative, the new view. You're an expression of it. Somebody who's started a business on their own, travels on their own, done so many things, experiences in their life. I think it's just a beautiful thing. I think you are a beautiful example.
Thank you. I think our society very much focuses on youth and vitality. But the reality is that most of us are aging. The entire planet is aging, and there are a whole lot more people out there who are older. In fact, I think in 2022, we hit the number where there are more people over the age of 50 than there are babies through the age of 15, which is like freshman year of high school. There are already more people over the age of 50.
Yes.
And so they're just going to get older. Right. And so I think that chasing the fountain of youth is kind of wasted energy. And there's a lot more focus now on having a healthy lifespan. Nobody really is there. I've never heard anyone say, I want to live a long time and I want the last 10 years of my life to be awful. Right? Okay. I mean, I still want to be able to be independent. So if I want to be independent, I have to take care of my physical health now, because from this point forward, I'm telling you, it's all about maintenance, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So taking care of those things and planning for that and, helps you be independent. And maybe I'm not going to start rock climbing at this age, age, but I can do yoga classes. Maybe I'll do some Tai Chi. I certainly can do strength exercises, take care of my nutrition, have social relationships, those types of things that add fulfillment to your life.
Yes.
It's not just about, I'm going to grow old and there's nothing to look forward to. There are a lot of people out there that we're aging with. And so there are a lot of opportunities for good living and healthy living as well.
Absolutely. And as I believe as the youth, as the younger people see the elderly, or I don't say elderly, the older generations aging better. The subject of aging won't seem so bleak to them. And then it may and hope, right? Those who are smart, they will take more charge of their moment so that they can age better. Aging well starts, in the younger years, right? Doesn't mean it's never too late, but it starts, if you could, the earlier you can start, the better off you'll be. It's just like investing, right? So you're investing in your health, you're investing in your wealth, you're investing in your mind, your body, your spirit, your soul, all that. And it's just like your bank account. The sooner, even with investing, the sooner you start saving for retirement, the better your retirement.
It's a long game.
Right, the long game.
Yes.
And, I believe that as the youth see, oh, wait a minute, when I get 50, I get sick, I look at Jill, I want to be like Jill. I want to be vibrant. She may not be rock climbing, but she's still, going to yoga. She's still dancing. She's still traveling. She's still enjoying life. I see that in so many other seniors now, right? I see that in a lot of people who are aging. I see people now I see people that are 70. I see my mom's 83. She gets around better than a lot of young people. I've seen people who are we know some people, another lady, she's 96, I believe. It's getting around better than a lot of young people. Mind's still sharp. It's here, right? We're here. We're living in a different day and age. As time goes by, medicine improves.
And we're living a lot longer.
Living a lot longer.
Yes.
We're living a lot longer.
More and more people are projected to hit 100.
Yes.
So, if you were going to live that long, take care of yourself.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
Plan for a good life.
Exactly.
As best you can.
Exactly. And, it's a beautiful thing. Like I said, and the more people see people aging with vitality, the more they will say, okay, let me take charge of my now so that I can age that way. That's the hope. And that's what we want to offer. We want to offer people the insight, the resources, the connection to be able to take charge of their now so that when they hit the latter years, the twilight years, as they call them, and I don't even believe in that term really. I don't even like to look at it that way. But as they age or begin to progress in age, they can be comfortable, they can be happy, they can be joyful, vital, and have all their things met.
Sure.
Now, what did you wish existed when you started looking for resources? And what was missing that you needed most?
I think what I was looking for were things around like maybe blogs or some sort of guidance of other people who are going down the same road and how they're finding solutions. So, for example, I went down to North Carolina a few years ago to look at some new building lots. And I have a cousin who is going to be retiring down near Wilmington. And I had my eye on that area. I had spent a lot of time in Myrtle Beach, and I thought I would end up in that vicinity down there retiring. That didn't happen. I guess I'm just a Yankee. But I went down there and looked around, and I thought about it. I thought, well, how would I make it? How would I begin to make that decision of picking up my life and moving down to a whole new place? Maybe it looks financially like a really good deal right now, but I have to find all new, doctors. I have to find my way around. I have to find new hobbies. I have to make new friends. I have to make all these connections. It's a lot of work. And I've done that because I've moved several times, and I've lived in, I think, 6 different states. So I've had to do that. I think I don't really care to do that at this point, going forward. But that's just one concern is, well, how do other people make this decision? It's, I didn't find anything really about that. You can find some information out there about how do I locate an assisted living for my mother. maybe you can find something on that. But that's not me. And, what about me and what I need now? The financial stuff, you can find a lot of information out there on that, but I don't recall ever seeing anything that said, if you are alone, here is the best plan to build wealth and secure your future.
Right.
All right. If you look for long-term care, it's all about, well, for you and your spouse, we have this product or whatever. Think, well, that doesn't apply either. And what about estate planning? How do you pick your beneficiaries? How do you decide how you're going to have a POA and things like this?
Right.
No, it's all about you assign your spouse this or your child that. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not finding the dialogue out there that speaks to what I'm looking for. And that's a problem because I'm not alone. There are millions of people out there who are in the same position. And there are a lot of younger people who aren't getting married and aren't having children. And a lot of people who are only having one child. So these people will age with no siblings. Okay, their families are going to shrink. That means fewer cousins. And so you need these resources because most likely we're going to have a lot more people who need something that's established specifically for their situation of going through this alone.
Wow. That really gave thought to something else. And maybe we can come back and talk about this in the future. But I spend a lot of time talking and do some mentoring and, other things that talk about and teaching about building legacy. Mm-hmm. And it's always centered around family. But, and this is definitely be a great future topic is, how do you build legacy as a solo ager? That's really, really important because I believe everybody wants to have some sort of legacy. And if you don't have, when you're not married, you don't have the children, like how do we do it? Because I want to make sure that as I teach this, that I'm not alienating anyone, any part of the population. I want to make sure that they have, I'm able to speak to them and offer them insight, offer them advice too, because everyone, they want to lead.
Well, having that conversation with a solo is going to be different from a couple for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I have to say there's a little bit of a mixed bag for the solo agers. I go out and I kind of troll through, social posts and I want to find out what are they talking about? What are they thinking about? And I remember this one part about, should you make your burial arrangements? And, it seemed like it was cut right in half. Some people were like, yes, I want to make sure that this is planned and I have an idea of what I want to have happen to me when I pass away. Mm-hmm. So they would pre-plan and take care of that, which I think is smart and good. Other people were like, I don't care. There's nobody out there to really, have a grave marker for or these things. When I go, I'll just go and let the world worry about it. So there's two completely different sides. So somebody in the latter, description, I don't think they care about legacy. But then somebody who does care about how they lived and leaving something behind, they might have a different idea on that. And there are certainly ways you can leave money to charity. All right. And then there's the whole financial piece. So this definitely warrants further discussion.
Yes,
but
it does.
If you are building equity and financial, assets, okay, with a partner, okay, over a long period of time, your wealth profile looks different. Right. Now, there are plenty of solo agers out there who have had high earning careers and will in the future have high earning careers. So it doesn't mean that they won't have significant assets and retire with a lot of money or have multiple homes. And I know some people who are investing in property and they have apartment rentals. And so they have assets and income from a variety of sources. So you can do that whether you're alone or whether you are married, it really doesn't matter. But the financial game is different because if you are living on one income and you're not doing any of that other type of planning, that helps you augment your assets and your finances for later in life, then you're going to be retiring with less and your life is going to look a little different. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of planning involved in that. And yeah, I don't know. It's so if you have a lot of money, mostly a lot, that's very relevant, that's a moving target,
yeah,
depending on the economy, right? But if you have significant wealth when you pass away and it's just you and you didn't have children and you have a rather small family, good question. What do you want to do with that? Do you want to leave it to your alma mater or, the Humane Society or different things like this? So different questions in there. So that's a huge area that's very different as well from how couples plan.
Absolutely. And with legacy encompassing much more than just wealth, there's a lot more, there's a lot of other ways to leave legacy other than wealth. But as a solo person, it's, but the conversation, just like you mentioned, the conversation is much different if someone comes to me and they're saying, I want to build, and they have children, they have spouse, they have this. Almost to the point where if you come to me and you say, I'm the solo person, at the moment, for me, that may be a very short conversation. Because, everything that I've built, everything that I've, learned and taught to this point has been learned, taught, built upon family. This person having a spouse, or they having children, or they having, siblings that they're working together to build. And that's what it was for, grandchildren. Now, when you come and you say, I'm a person, I don't have a spouse, I don't have any siblings, I don't have any children, therefore I don't have any grandchildren. Now you leave, so we definitely have to have this conversation again, because I want to know, how can we help those? Because you don't think about it until you're confronted with it. And you were thrust into that space, and you came and said, wait a minute, you saw a void, and you said, let me fill this void. Let me help others who are going to be traveling the same path that I am. I commend you for that. That took a lot of courage on your part, and it took a lot of self-awareness, right?
I think it was just the universe that threw this stuff at me, and I happened to be awake and paying attention. But hey, it's odd how things happen. And like at this point in my life, I really didn't expect to be starting a whole new, initiative and a whole business and everything like this. But it did come out of my own personal experience.
Yes.
And just like your frame of reference for how you want to help people comes out of yours.
Yes.
When you're married and you're a parent and you have these types of things, that's what you're looking at. And you want to protect that and help others in the same boat protect that as well. So on the other side of that, those who have a different life experience are looking at, at it through their lens, so that's, it makes sense for me to be doing this because it's my own personal experience. And there's not enough good info out there.
And there's not. And when I think about it, I say, you know what? They have a right to information. They have a right to resources just as much as everyone else.
Oh, sure.
And to, I just believe that, we can't, society has to be all inclusive, right? You can't alienate anybody, can't exclude anybody. Everybody has to have a place. Everybody has to have a space, somewhere to belong. Already as part of the aging population, they feel isolated. And I think about that. I think about it because, working in, owning a business in the home care space, and you see all kinds of circumstances, all kinds of people with all kinds of circumstances. One that always touches me is that the person who's isolated, the person who doesn't have somebody to come by and say, hello. I visited, Bridget and I actually today, we went and visited a client of ours. It's a new client. And when I tell you that this man lit up when we got there and he saw us, and I told him, I said, in the time we've been working with you, this is the first time I've seen you smile. And that's a person who's coming, who's smiling at the arrival of the people who are providing him to have care.
Possibly the only person he interacts with the entire week.
Right.
Though
he lives in a whole community, but he really doesn't interact with people. But you think about it, say, what is his life like? That his excitement is at seeing the people who come to the care.
Well, he likes you.
Well, I mean, I'm a likable guy.
Right, exactly.
But you think about it, it's I see people that are isolated all the time, not have anybody, and I think then I run it. We meet, and we're talking about you providing a service that helps Solo Agers, And it really just resonates with me so much on so many different levels. I just, and again, I can't just say enough about how important this is.
Well, there's a lot of isolation and loneliness that cuts across all age groups. And in fact, I recently, heard that people in their 20s are one of the most isolated, unhappiest, most depressed group of people, which I find shocking because my 20s were a constant party. I mean, you always had lots of people, and whether you're dating or having just lots of friends, a huge group of friends. But as time goes by, the truth is that your group of people around you shrinks. So it's big in your 20s. You're all in the same boat doing the same thing. Well, you hit your 30s. Depends. A lot of people get married. They're having, families. They're moving for their jobs and things. So the people you're involved with, you fall away from some friends you used to have in your 20s. So your group shrinks a little. Then you get into your 40s. You have the demands of life and bills and all these things like this. You don't have time for a lot of this. So it shrinks a little bit more. Yeah. You hit your 50s, it shrinks a little bit more. So once you're out of the workforce and you're retired, any type of people you were involved with at your job, they don't stick around. You might keep one or two relationships if you're lucky from your work life. Things change again. So now your group shrinks. And in your 50s and going forward, what I found is that my high school classmates slowly started to pass away. That's a sobering reality too, that makes you think I'm getting older. Right. Yeah. And so that's another shrinking group of people, people from your past who you had this connection to. So think about it when you're in your 60s, when you're in your 70s, when you're in your 80s and your friends have passed away, your spouse might have passed away, friends moved to be near their kids. I remember I said, well, if you move to Tennessee to be near your grandchild or something, you're leaving your friends behind. So you can see how this group shrinks and shrinks. And it's very easy to be isolated, to be left alone, you feel loneliness. And so one thing that I wanted to do was to provide some sort of an avenue for people to connect with their peers, because there are some groups out there, you'll find them now and then, who want to do intergenerational programs where they bring older people with younger people in different age groups and stuff. And that works very well for a lot of people. I mentioned that at one of my coffee socials to, a group of my solo agers, and they're like, no, I don't want to be around a bunch of young teenagers or whatever. For this, I just want people my age because we have things in common. So I thought, okay, so there's different people who want and feel about things differently, you know. So, isolation and loneliness is huge, especially since COVID has gotten a lot of attention.
Yes, it has.
And it is not healthy, right? And it doesn't have to be that way.
No. And important, too, is that a person can be in a room full of people and still be isolated.
They can feel lonely.
Yes.
There are a lot of people out there who are not comfortable in social situations or think of themselves as a loner. I'm fairly outgoing because I've had to be in my marketing career, but there are times I've never really enjoyed walking into a huge room of 100 or 300 people and work in the room at a networking event.
Yes.
I can't say I've enjoyed it. I understand the mechanics of doing that, okay, but would I rather be home in my hoodie and my jammies and my comfy slippers? Oh yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
But that's not a life to have. You've got to get out and do things and be a part of groups, Yeah. Another thing, too, is for a very long period of time, there's been a decline in people just joining groups, whether it's a volunteer group like a Rotary or something like this, or people don't go to church like they used to. So that connection to a spiritual community is dissolving. It's hard to find that. Professional networking groups have, declined or yoked, because they don't have enough people. Chambers of Commerce have been doing that too, where they don't have enough in one town or another town, so they come together. People just aren't joining that. And so if you don't have these community organizations to be part of, where are you going? Where are you meeting people? What are you doing? Are you just sitting home, streaming all night long alone and all weekend and stuff? It's not a good dynamic. And so we as a society have become so much more disconnected and isolated.
Yes.
And at the same time, these groups that we would have been part of are disappearing. And what they call third places, which are those coffee shops, like you remember Borders, and places like that. So a lot of those have gone away. Yes, we have coffee shops, but if you look at most of them, at the sheer number of them, you go and get a coffee and you leave. It's not like they're set up as a community space where you really can hang out and meet people, or that there are events going on.
Right.
So we don't have a lot of opportunities like that. And older people who grew up without cell phones, without social media, and they were indoctrinated into a lifestyle where they had school dances, and you rode the bus with your friends, and you talked on a phone, and you had, activities, you played outside in big groups. They're used to human interaction. And so that it's very painful when you're older and you're like, where's everybody gone? How do I meet people? What am I doing?
Right.
And I have people who have said to me, I'm trying to meet people at the senior center. I go, but everybody runs home to their spouse at the end of the day, and they don't do anything on the weekends because they're not open on the weekends.
Right.
So it's like, okay, so these people will sit home alone from 3 o'clock on a Friday until the following Monday. So all weekend, they have nobody to talk to, nowhere to go, and nothing to do. That's not good.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not. So many things you said in there that just triggered things in my mind. But one thing is, like, Bridget and I were talking about this, how when we were children, we were young, we were outside playing, we were doing things like going to school dances, things, events at the school. There was always something to do.
Yes.
And now when I look at these younger kids, like, they're in the house, they're playing video games, or they're, sometimes they play online with other people. It's not the same.
That's not human interaction.
No, it's not. Yeah. And most recently, I was in the barbershop, and there's a young man who told me that, he said, oh, I like this girl. We've been texting back and forth. He said, and, she'd be writing me back, but I put her text in ChatGPT to figure out what the response is. I almost fell out my chair. I'm like, what? Have the young people's social skills deteriorated to the point where you need ChatGPT to tell you how to talk to a girl?
And hopefully she's not an AI bot on the other side, that she's maybe a human and real.
Right.
Yeah, and see, I had a real childhood too. So we learned things like, how to get along in groups and teams, and how to defend yourself, and how to do what we would call today conflict resolution. We didn't say that when we were 10 and 12 and 15.
Right,
we
no,
just, I'm just going to punch him out if he gets in my way, or, I'm going to avoid him because he's mean, or,
Yes.
But you learn those skills, and if you don't learn them, then, what do you do later and stuff? Yeah. So there's a big difference, but what's the same, regardless of the age, is the isolation and loneliness, and the need for people, need for human interaction, need for connection.
Need for those experiences.
Yes.
Because when I was a young man, if I liked a girl, I had to muster up the courage to go and speak to her. I didn't have
rejection builds character.
I couldn't hide behind a text. I might pass her a note. You might, when you're younger, you pass a note. But you went to a dance, you like the girl, you wanted to go dance. Hey, you had to walk over to them, you had to ask them to dance. It built character, is what you said, with exactly what you said.
Sure.
And I get concerned when we start taking these things out of society, and there's no more, every mechanism that's in place to help you build character, struggle, trials, these things help you build character. But when you're not taking this, no, you're not going through these things, you're not building that character, you're not strengthening the character. I worry about a society like that.
I think there's a lot to worry about, with the way things are headed. So, with Solo Agers, being older, over 50, many of the ones that come to the coffee socials or I interact with are over 60 or they're retired. So they had those experiences, right? But sometimes it can feel the same, like going to a dance and you're afraid to ask somebody out, or you're sitting on the sidelines hoping someone will ask you to dance, right? It's still the same kind of feeling of not always feeling comfortable in a social situation. But, they have to get out there and meet people and try different organizations or community groups or things to find their tribe. You can meet a lot of people, but not connect with a lot of people.
Absolutely.
But if you don't go anywhere, I can guarantee you won't connect with anybody.
Absolutely. And I believe that, it's those experiences from the youth that give them the courage to be able to do it.
Sure, it's the experience.
It's the experience, right? That's what you had. Is there a Solo Agers program without Jill having those childhood experiences of having to go out and meet people and talk to people? Is there a Solo Agers without Jill going to those, even though she didn't want to be there, going to those networking meetings and rubbing elbows? This helped give you the fortitude and the strength to be able to go out.
And the skills. I'm using all of my marketing prowess and all of my conversational abilities, through, for Solo Agers. So I run the coffee socials, and I don't usually have to worry about people not talking to each other because they're there and they want to talk to people. But I always have in the back, of my mind, I should say my back pocket, an icebreaker or questions to ask. I make sure I introduce people. I start things, So if you don't have those skills, I don't know, I guess you sit around on your phones like this across the table from people, which is not a good thing. That does not happen, in my solo groups.
No, yeah, that's right. And you talk about the coffee socials and the events and them dying off. COVID played a big part in that. But what I will say is that lately, I've been seeing the trend, they're trending to coming back. Where, there was everything was online and everybody was doing their, webinar and this and that. But I'm starting to see a trend where there's, a lot more live events that are starting to pop up now and they're coming back into play. So I think that's a good thing.
Is it desperation is the mother of invention, something like that, right?
Yes.
You're desperate enough, you'll find a way to have an event or something.
Yes.
I'm seeing little snippets of that occur as well.
Yes.
And it's hopeful. And I don't think it was just COVID. I think there was something brewing for a very, very long time. And I think a lot of it does have to do with using our phones and certain ways of using technology to avoid human interaction and stuff, and a lot of other little things. COVID just exposed it, and made it put a real spotlight on some of that. I think that's what happened, and now we're just sort of recovering from it. So it's a long road.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah. So Jill, 16 million Solo Agers, 250,000 in Connecticut. Who are these people, and what do they look like?
Well, Sean, I think the numbers are bigger than that because I define my business as age 50 and older. But some of the data that I pulled, like from the U.S. Census and a lot of other, reliable data, puts people as solo agers anywhere from 50 and older, or 60 and older, or 65 and older. So it's a little bit of a moving target. So I think that when you really look at the continuum of age 50 and older, you're looking at more than 17 million people in the U.S., probably closer to that number, and certainly at least 250,000 in Connecticut, probably more, because we've always had a reputation in Connecticut for having an older and more educated workforce. So if people didn't all move out, they're still here.
Yes.
But yes, they look like everybody we look at. Okay, everybody seems to know a solo ager. It's your neighbor across the street, or an aunt or uncle in your family that didn't get married, a cousin, a friend, a coworker. And we have men and women. Okay, but they're people who are unmarried. Okay, and they actually can, I guess you'd say, become a solo ager at various points in their life. For example, they can be someone who's never married. All right. They can be someone who married and divorced. They can be someone who was married and as a couple, they never had children. Okay. So somebody can also lose their spouse in a very late divorce, like the gray divorce that we hear about. So you can be married for 30 or more years and then suddenly be single. And then you can also be married and then suddenly lose your spouse when they pass away. And I find that, a lot of gentlemen, come to the Solo Agers coffee socials who have been widowed for about a year and a half. They finally are trying to get out and meet people and everything. So they can be varying ages. I'm divorced. Okay. So, and I don't have children. So this is the face of a solo ager.
Yes.
Okay. But I've met people in their 70s and 80s. Okay. And then people who are around 50 who said, well, I'm never going to get married and they don't have children. They're not planning on having children. So they're younger than me. So we look like everybody. There's no real look to us other than what defines us as part of that solo ager community.
Oh, so they don't come out with Solo Ager tattooed on their foreheads, huh?
No. You might see us in packs, though, having a Solo Ager coffee or on a solo trip or something like that. But
yes.
No.
So what's the difference between an elder orphan and a solo ager?
I think it's really just the term. Elder orphan was coined by somebody a number of years ago, I guess when she was doing some research in this topic, somebody who was looking at the aging population. But that is a term that is pretty much fallen out of favor because people feel a lot more youthful. They don't call themselves elderly. I probably, like my mother, will not agree to be called, elderly until I'm really elderly,
Yes.
like in my late 80s or something, because I feel perpetually younger inside, and most people I talk to feel the same way. And then a lot of people are not orphans. They're taking care of the aging parents.
Right.
You can have a solo in her 60s who's taking care of a father or a mother in their 80s. So they're certainly not orphans, and they don't identify with that term. Also, elder and orphan conjure up kind of sad or bleak types of terms, whereas as solo ager, it's the same thing. We're all just older people who are alone, okay,
Exactly.
navigating life. But solo ager is I think a more hip term.
I like Solo Ager much better.
I do too.
Yeah, I think elder, orphan, they both have a certain stigma to them, yeah. But Solo Ager sounds, it has like a whole vibe to it, right?
It does,
I
yes.
think it captures the whole movement a lot better.
Yes.
Yes. So what's the biggest misconception that people have about Solo Agers?
I think people originally just think, oh, they're so sad or something, because they didn't get married and they didn't have kids and whatever. And that's not really true. I remember going to lots of networking things, and people would ask me if I had kids, and I said, no, I'm on the no tuition plan. And let me tell you, parents were like, oh, wow, that sounds so great.
Yes.
Now, there are a lot of different sides to this. There are people who maybe don't have children and maybe later in life regret it or something, but I haven't met them yet, to be honest. And some people don't have children because they can't have children. So they just make the best of their lives without children. So, there are a lot of different people with a lot of different feelings in there. But I don't think that there's, I don't think that you can look at a solo ager and feel sorry for them. I think in a lot of ways it's about independence and making your own decisions. And I don't have to ask anybody, well, what movie do you want to watch tonight? I don't have to worry about what's for dinner because I decide, and I decide where I'm traveling, and I decide how I'll spend my money and how I want to spend my days or do everything. There's a lot of power in that, Now, there's another side to it. Yeah, sometimes it'd be nice if there was somebody to just go out to dinner with. Not everybody is available. You call people. A lot of people are not, they're not spontaneous. So that can be a little, bit of a blip in your day or whatever, your week. But for the most part, I find solo agers really like to spend time alone. They enjoy their own company. They have plenty of interests. Yes, there's a faction of them that would like to have more friends and social connections, and maybe some people trying and struggling with that, especially people who are going through the transition of divorce, sudden singleness, or having lost their spouse to death. So those people are in a little bit more of a transition, and they're looking to rebuild those kind of new adventures for themselves, trying to figure out what life looks like. There are a lot, just like anybody. People who are married, some are happy, some are not. Not every day is, you're not in love, wildly passionate every day. Life is about doing all the mundane chores of life. So it's just like anybody else,
So you say solo agers are hidden in plain sight. What does that mean?
The way that I mean that is that there are a lot of us out there, but nobody really talks about us, except today I'm talking about us, right? And a lot of the products and services that are offered cater to couples. And there's nothing wrong with being a couple. It's great, all right? But when you're looking for long-term care or financial planning or estate planning, and I'll kid about this when I make presentations, I say, I have yet to talk to a mortgage specialist who says, well, I'll tell you what, you only have one income as a solo, so we're only going to charge you half as much on that mortgage for that house. Nobody's selling a house saying, well, we won't charge you $400,000. Let's sell it to you for $200,000 because it's only one income. That doesn't happen.
No.
Okay. So we're out there and we're buying homes and we're buying cars and we're buying groceries. We're buying clothes. We're going on vacations. We're doing all the things that everybody else is doing. But we have slightly different needs that need to cater. We need solutions that are catering to what we need. All right. But we're out there right in front of you. Like I said, your cousin, your family has a solo ager in there somewhere, somebody living on your street, a neighbor, someone you work with, someone in your church. They're out there. They're all around. Okay. So we're hiding in plain sight because we're right in front of you, but nobody's really talking about what we need.
Yes.
Everything, not everything, but so much of the world is phrased for couples.
Yes, it is. So since we've been talking about money, what 3 to 5 money moves should solo agers prioritize that are different from someone with family?
Well, I'm not a financial planner, but I can speak from my knowledge of this and what some other people are doing and what I've done. All right. Investing is a long game, which means that you have to start early and incrementally set aside money so that it grows and compounds, so that at the end of that, when you need to draw on that money, there's a bigger pot of money to draw from.
Yes.
So planning early and starting to save early, I think, is absolutely critical, because what happens later in life is you're probably going to need that money for towards the later part of your life for more medical expenses and different things. Okay, and you can't do the lawn anymore. Maybe you sell your house, but maybe you stay in your house. Well, you have to pay someone to do that lawn, things like that, and it's on one income. So saving over a long period of time, so starting early. I would highly recommend that someone find a reliable and trustworthy financial advisor, because it's, if you don't plan, you're not going to get there because you're not planning to get there. Okay.
Right.
So that helps you chart a course and make it comfortable for yourself later. Because if you want to stay independent, all right, money is the key to that. Okay, so those are probably two things. Later in life, and I don't know when that's going to occur, it depends on your health and well-being and what your situation is, but finding a trusted power of attorney or someone who's going to handle your money in case you become incapacitated. And that's a little bit more through the, estate planning type of thing, but you have to find somebody who's not going to rip you off and take your money, okay, which happens.
Right.
Okay, but to be able to understand what that's going to mean for you and to be smart about that. So educating yourself about what that means and how that's going to happen and who you can trust to do that for you. So I'd say start planning early, get someone to help you, chart the course, and then educate yourself and make smart decisions about something like a power of attorney who would handle your finances if something happens to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So how do solo agers protect themselves from financial scams?
Well, sometimes you'll hear about these catfishing schemes or, online dating. It can happen at any age. But if you're alone and you are lonely and you're going out on the internet to find partnership, I would say you're probably vulnerable to sweet talkers who have, bad intent.
Right.
So I would say that there's a lot of information out there. And actually, my site, I have a resources page, and there's a whole section in there about scam prevention and stuff. So, like the FBI puts out a lot of stuff the government does. There's a lot of good information out there. I'd say read it, become, aware of what, scamming is, what phishing is. If your phone rings and somebody wants money, if you're lonely and nobody calls you, you're more likely to talk to that person. And also older generations will answer the door and we will answer the phone. Okay? And we will talk with people. So you have to be vigilant about that and understanding how to use technology smartly. All right. Yeah. You do not have to answer every text. You shouldn't click a link you don't know. So some senior centers offer a lot of programs on that, your library and stuff. So you have to educate yourself on that, because we're growing up and growing older in a time of technology that we didn't start with when we were younger. So we're still lagging in our learning of it and careful use of it. So you have to be really careful about that.
Now talk to us about building chosen family. What does that look like in practice?
I recently saw, I think it was a video, I don't know if I wouldn't call it a podcast, but it was a video, I think it was with Oprah actually, and they were talking about estranged family. And the statistic was that 30% of people are estranged from their family. This says 1 out of 3 people, either from their parents or their siblings or everybody in their family. That's a lot of people. Wow. And I find that, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who have had children who are missing in action. They just cut off themselves from their parents, and it's very sad for those parents. So a solo ager can be a parent, but their child may just have, not be in touch with them. And that can happen for a lot of reasons. There can be a lot of dynamics in there that can create that kind of a rift. So when you don't have that, what do you do? All right. So what do you do around the holidays? That's another question, too, that married people and families don't have to worry about. Usually it's about who's going to do the dishes. So when you're a solo ager, a lot of people are like, I don't even celebrate this anymore. I don't do anything for Christmas, or I have nowhere to go on Thanksgiving. So you have to look at that and say, well, how do you want your life to be? What do you want to do for this? And then you have to find people who share those types of feelings. And you're building a sense of community. You can call it a family because you might find some people who you develop a really close relationship with. And over my life, I know that there was a woman, my brother-in-law had worked with a woman who was a professor. He was a professor at a university, and she and her husband were professors. The husband had passed. They never had children. So she was alone. And they used to invite her over for all the holidays. And she was like an extended part of our family. So that was nice, that she could, she knew all of us and we could have conversation. It was just like, Marjorie fit in with everybody. Mm-hmm. So for her, we were kind of an extension of her family. And what I've been doing now for Thanksgiving for the past few years is I go to my friend's house. We went to high school together. And so he and his wife live about 4 hours away. And they're empty nesters now. And the house is too big. And they have plenty of space for me to stay. And they're like, are you coming for Thanksgiving? I said, yeah, sure. So I spend Thanksgiving with them. And, their kids come home. And his sister comes over and another friend. And I'm just sort of there as part of the family. They're almost like a little extension of my family. Wow. Because we're spending holidays together. So finding people like that and building those experiences with is just an extension of your community. And you can feel that they're family. I mean, you can have family and relatives that you don't even like, but you can have non-blood, connections who you feel closer to. Like my friend that I go to Thanksgiving, he's like a brother to me. It's, that's how close we are. It's wonderful.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So what kind of connections are you forming through SoloAgersConnect?
Oh, lots and lots. It's been a very interesting journey. I'm meeting a lot of professionals like yourself, okay, who are all wonderful people who are sort of circling this whole aging continuum. And everybody's nice. I'm just interesting people who are nice because for me, coming from a marketing and corporate background, it's kind of, a closed loop of certain types of networking groups you go to or people that you meet. But suddenly outside of that, in a totally different industry, I'm meeting a lot of people connected to that who are wonderful. And the solos themselves, I'm meeting a lot of people I never would have met. All right. And they're coming to the coffee socials, and they're all interesting, each person with their own life, a whole life, and interesting experiences. And there's a gentleman who comes to the one in Wallingford, and he gave me a tip on a performing arts place where jazz bands play in New Orleans. Okay, called Tipitina's. Okay? Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, you ought to go. My son had gone there. He highly recommends it. And I thought, never heard of the place, whatever. We got tickets. I was in New Orleans for Christmas this past year. So I went with a friend who I'd met on a solo trip. She comes from Minnesota, and we went down to New Orleans. We went to Tipitina's. We had a fabulous time. Great live jazz music. It was great. So that's what I found from this person just at a coffee social. And then and there's another person who talks a lot about AI and has this great technology background. And what did I learn on Saturday from somebody about some sort of special, it's called a GPS. We don't know really what that is. It's not the kind of GPS in your phone. And it's like a big battery that you can charge up, and it holds a charge for a long time. So if you lose power, you don't have to have a huge generator. You can run quite a few things off of that. And I said, gee, that's really good to know, because if you're in a condo that's all electric and you don't have some other way to heat something or keep your refrigerator going, that was great. And I was thinking, I wish I had known this a few years ago. So people have all this cool information, and we're talking about stuff and where they've traveled and all this. So I'm meeting wonderful people. Every day is kind of a new experience. It's great.
Wow. So give us concrete weekly actions that reduce isolation.
Okay. I do some talks to all different groups, and one part of that is I can do like a little workshop in there where we go through an exercise like this. And it's really to jog people's memories for some things that they've left behind, like things they used to enjoy, like maybe a hobby or a group they used to and be involved with, et cetera, or to find new things. So a few things you can do. The libraries have become community centers. All right. So they have not only great ways to learn things, including technology. Okay, so if you want to learn how to use your smartphone or learn to use it better as a camera, or just computers in general, as well as putting together puzzles with other people and community activities, or all sorts of things. So I would say connecting with a community, a library, okay, to meet people. I remember going to something and I made a connection with a lady and we hang out together. So I made a friend through that. Wow. So it definitely works. Another thing is if you don't have a spiritual community, connect with a spiritual community if you feel that that would bring something to you. Mm-hmm. I belong to a congregational church and it's been terrific. And I just love the people there and I'm involved in some groups there and it's just been delightful. So it's been a wonderful thing. So that's another connection there. One thing that I do that I enjoy, and it's not a big commitment, is I usher at a stage company in Hartford. So I get to see the performances, but I meet different people and it's fun and I like it. And so some people do that for different theater places. We have great stuff in Connecticut, so you could find something. You could also be trained to be a docent at a museum. Okay, so if you like historical stuff in museums, that's something there. I took an art class at the New Britain Museum of American Art, and I'm also a member there. They run all sorts of events, from cocktail hours to dancing things, to classes, to tours, to talks. It's surprising how much they have, and that wow. They're not the only place on the block. There are many places that do this. So those are a few places that you can go, and you can resurrect a hobby. Through that, your senior centers are not only places where you can exercise and get healthier, okay, but you can take informational classes and sessions, and there are lots of community activities in there of your peers. Okay, so you'll meet people. And don't feel that you have to go to only the senior center in your town. Go to ones in nearby towns because each one has its own personality. And you might say, I don't fit in here, and then find another one and say, wow, I love this. These guys shoot pool. These ones play chess. There's a great ladies group over here. So you'll find something. You just have to go looking for it and be bold enough to try on things like that. Yeah. So those are all things you can do. And also, too, if you like lifelong learning, different universities have programs. Central Connecticut State University has a very good Scholars for Life program designed specifically for older people and retired people. They do some dinner programs. They do some online programs. It's just always new talks and information. And you can sit with a group of people at a table and meet new people. And you're coming to these with an interest in this, so you already have something in common with everybody who's going to be there. And that's something to keep in mind.
Wow. So how should home care agencies, doctors, financial advisors adapt for solo agers? And what should these providers be doing differently?
It's kind of interesting. There's this epidemic of loneliness, and loneliness can lead to depression, and depression can lead to a lot of chronic illnesses. And so doctors who are treating people who are aging, see this, firsthand. So, but I can't think that I've actually gone to a medical appointment where they've asked me, and maybe they have on a questionnaire, if I'm the only person living in the home. There is a question in there, do you feel safe? And that speaks to another, different issues. But nobody's really breached that subject. Like, so are you alone, or do you, who do you have in your life, or whatever? So I think possibly maybe asking a question like that, seeing where that leads to, because for a simple reason with a doctor, if you need to go, for example, to a medical test, let's just say a routine colonoscopy. Okay, maybe you can take an Uber or a taxi over there, but they will not let you leave unless somebody is going to be taking you home. And some of those, like a doctor, someone told me the other day, and I can't confirm this, but a taxi or an Uber doesn't want to pick you up from a medical appointment like that. They don't want the liability in case you should pass out in the car, maybe, or something like that. But if you don't have anybody around to help you get home from that, that could present a problem. All right. So maybe there's a conversation there, and maybe there's transportation information that they can say, well, call your senior center, call your town, find out if there's transportation, arrange for that in advance. Maybe by helping, kind of plant that seed in their minds, that would be helpful. For estate planners or financial people who are helping them, it's about what are your goals? And most of the time they'll ask that. They'll say, what are your goals and things like this. But let's say that you're selling insurance or insurance is part of what you sell. I'm going to say it right now. Do I need life insurance? Life insurance is to replace lost income. So once I'm gone, there's nobody else paying my stuff. So do I need life insurance? Maybe not. Maybe that's not the conversation to have. Maybe long-term care insurance is the conversation to have. Or maybe the question is, well, how, if you're not going to have long-term care insurance, how are you going to fund maybe the last few years of your life where you're going to have huge costs for possibly nursing care or in-home care? That's something to work out with a financial planner. So looking at things that way. And our goals might be different, from a couple. So you just have to say, so what's on your mind? What's different? And then here, listen to that, and not think that you're going to offer them the same thing you offered other clients who are in a different situation.
Absolutely. So if someone just realized that they're a solo ager, what are 5 steps they can take in the next 30 days?
5 steps. Wow. I think it'd be wonderful if they took 2. I guess if they say, gosh, solo ager, I guess I am a solo ager. I would say, how's your life? I mean, close your eyes and imagine yourself a year from now. Nothing has changed. Your life is exactly the way it is. Do you like that picture? Then great, keep doing what you're doing. If you're not happy with how that looks, start making little changes. So maybe you look at it and say, well, I don't really have as many friends as I'd like to have. Okay, then a step you can take is do one of those things that I mentioned. Maybe do you like a museum? Do you like performing arts? Do you like craft hobbies? Do you like to volunteer? There are so many opportunities and groups that would love to invite you into their fold. So maybe if you identify, I want to meet more people, okay, that's one thing. If you say, well, I'm kind of okay where I am, but I'm kind of sitting around doing not a lot, at home, but I like to be alone. Well, then maybe you need to dust off a new hobby, all right? And so I would still go the same route to say, well, what did I used to enjoy? Or what could be new and different, all right? And like on Facebook even, there are so many hobby groups and places you can connect. So ask yourself, am I happy with where I am? If I need to make incremental changes, what's one thing that I could maybe dial up the needle on just a little bit, and then focus on that. And once you get that kind of going, then maybe go to the next step. So if friends are one thing, but then maybe I don't like where I'm living, meet some friends, and then maybe through those friends you will find a solution to where you're living. So you never know what's going to happen. As far as hobbies go, it's interesting because 2 years ago I never would have guessed I'd be doing this, but I'm shooting pool. I'm on a ladies league I play on monthly, and a Monday night league. It's men and women mixed, and I enjoy it. I've met completely different people than I ever would have met in my corporate job or that I would meet through Solo Agers. So it has opened up a whole new world to me, and I think I'm improving, which is good. But it's a great hobby, and it's not expensive, and it's very social. You're around humans every week, and you're learning, and it's fun. Yeah. And it took me by surprise. So you never know what adventure is around the corner.
All right. So where can people find you and connect with SoloAgersConnect?
I have a website, the informational hub, SoloAgersConnect.com. So they can go to SoloAgersConnect.com, explore the site, hopefully find information that they like. But there's a contact form in there, and also events. I mean, if they want to attend an event or something, they can RSVP. They'll find all the information. It's completely free to go to the site and access everything that's on there. And they can find me on Facebook at Solo Agers Connect. We have a Facebook page, and on Instagram at Solo Agers Connect. Although more people are on Facebook, and I have a newsletter as well, and you can sign up for that off of the website.
Oh, great. And also the information will be down below in the comments section of this video.
Thank you.
All right. So
that's the easy button.
Yes, it is.
Just click.
Just click. So what's one thing you wish someone had told you when you first started this whole journey?
This journey of the Solo Agers Connect?
Yes.
Wow. I kind of did it in an interesting way because I wrote a business plan and I really thought about it. What would I wish they had said? I don't know. That's a tough one. I don't know. I don't know if I have an answer to that one. I think that I've met interesting people who've given me little bits of advice along the way. I think I would have someone say to me the same thing I would say to the next person: enjoy the ride.
All right. All right. So we're going to our rapid fire round now.
Ooh, okay.
Every time we do a rapid fire round with every guest. So I'm going to give you a question. No overthinking. Give me the first answer that comes to mind. Don't worry. It's there.
All right. Fire away.
All right. Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
One book every solo ager should read.
I brought a little book, actually, because, spoiler alert, I knew that you were going to ask this particular question. Can I share this?
Yes.
Okay. A solo ager friend of mine shared this with me, or she gave it to me as a gift. It's called The Little Frog's Guide to Life. And it's really about an individual frog that goes through here. So it's for a solo. And there are a couple of things in here, and I just want to touch on that. It's kind of neat because it's sort of inspirational and has wonderful illustrations in it. But if you take a look at it once in a while, one thing is all important relationships require some level of nurturing. And your relationship with yourself is no different. And then this other one speaks to optimism, I think, and embracing life. It says, take time to be astonished. Magic can be found in the most unexpected places.
Wow.
So The Little Frog's Guide to Life, not so bad. It's a good tabletop find.
All right. Favorite way to connect with new people?
In person over coffee. I like coffee.
Okay. Biggest money mistake you see solo agers make?
Probably not setting goals early enough to be able to get where they need to be.
What's in your self-care toolkit?
Oh, that's an easy one. I get a facial every month.
One tech tool solo agers should embrace.
Wow, technology is so key. I guess probably cell phones, simply because they're with us all the time, and so much of everything is being pushed to our cell phone. So learn it, learn to be comfortable with it, how to use it carefully, because it's a lifeline in a lot of ways.
All right, complete this sentence. Solo aging is not lonely, it's...
liberating.
All right. If you could have coffee with any solo ager advocate, alive or historical, who would it be?
That's interesting. My first thought was who I admire, and I don't know if she would be a solo ager advocate, but all I could find about her is that she was married and then separated, and I don't think she had children. And it was Anne Sullivan, the teacher of Helen Keller, because she had tremendous purpose and talent and really affected change. And you talked about legacy earlier, and I can't think of somebody who left a bigger legacy. We think of Helen, but without her teacher, I don't think that she would have maybe been as remarkable in her life.
Yeah.
So if Anne liked coffee, I'd have coffee with her.
All right. Now, Jill, if you could write a letter to your younger self, maybe in your 30s or 40s, before you knew you'd be a solo ager, what would you tell her?
Maybe be a little more fearless. I think when you're younger like that, you worry about, you worry about a lot of things, or you worry about what other people are going to think, or something like this. And I think just being a little more fearless, because I'm really very much an entrepreneur, and I would have tried things like that earlier. I did anyway, later, but I think being a little more fearless. Don't worry so much about what's around the corner, because it just doesn't usually happen.
Wow, true. That's so true.
It doesn't.
Yep, it's always bigger in your mind, more scary in your mind than it is in actual reality.
Yeah, and they say, too, everything you want is on the other side of fear.
Yeah, that's so true. That's
so be fearless, more fearless.
I live by that. I try to live by that anyway, right?
It's hard. It's hard.
Jill, thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of this episode.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
we definitely have to have you back again because there's so many things that we didn't get a chance to get into. So I look forward to you coming back. I look forward to hosting you again. And I look forward to us working together on some wonderful things in the future.
You invite me and I'll return.
Oh,
Thank you,
sounds
son.
great. Thank you, everyone, for enjoying this episode of Aging Wealthily. If you want to reach Jill, all her information is down below in the comment section. You can go to her Facebook page, go to her website. All the information you need to contact Jill and SoloAgersConnect is down below. If you are in the Middletown area, please stop by the Main Street Marketplace. There are some great stores and restaurants in the marketplace. Also, if you're looking for office space, there are some great office space. It's a wonderful place to launch and grow your business. Thank you for joining us today. Have a great day. Make today one of your best days ever, and we'll see you on the next episode of Aging Wealthily.